Welcome to the show, everyone. I love it. And I love my show. And the reason why is because all this great information that people hear when they listen to the show. We're live on Facebook, so I do want to say hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We'll share the show later on. And I'm so excited about bringing on my first guest who's got a lot going on right now. I have with me Anna Von Straussenburg, and she's the owner of Anna Von Straussenburg CPA. Welcome back to the show. You have been supporting me for years. Thank you for being on the show. You've been my sponsor. You're here again to talk a little bit about a lot that's going on. And I want you to tell everybody first a little bit about yourself, right? And here's what makes her different. You're all about excellence and integrity in accounting.
Yes, well, I've been a CPA for over 24 years now, and I've been in the accounting business for over 30 years. Anyway, and I actually started off not an accountant. I was in the teaching profession, and I was realizing that it wasn't paying very well, and I wasn't happy. And my husband said to me, hey, maybe you ought to go into business, like something like accounting, because you know our family budget on a spreadsheet. Who does that? And
now this was when?
1990.
1990.
And, you know, and you know, PCs were barely a thing then. And so I decided to go out and get a job in an accounting firm. I applied for different business positions. I applied at McDonald's corporate, believe it or not. And I applied for a real estate thing, and then I applied at an accounting firm. I got in a job at the accounting firm, and I was really grateful that I got a job there and not with McDonald's, because I didn't want to explain to my friends that yes, I work for McDonald's, but it's the corporate office doing accounting.
That's funny.
Anyway, but I started off on the bottom rung as the receptionist, but I learned a lot about the accounting world and decided to go back to school and become a CPA.
And lo and behold, not only did you work there, but the owner of that company came to you. Was it the owner?
No, not that company.
Oh,
that was back in Santa Barbara.
Oh, sorry.
Then I moved to Arizona, and I started working for a CPA here in Arizona. And he liked my work so much, he eventually offered me the company when he retired. He actually has a son who's a CPA, but he didn't want to run the practice. In fact, he didn't want to really do CPA work every day. And so I had the opportunity to buy the practice, and that was about 5 years ago.
It's amazing.
So,
now, there's a lot going on in your world right now.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, not only is it tax season, which it is, but you also have a lot other things as well. Now, today you wanted to talk about capital loss versus net operating losses, and listen up everyone, because this could happen. If it could happen to this person, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah, well, it came to my mind because a client said, oh, you know, my previous CPA said I can do this Roth conversion and offset it with my losses. So when he initially said it to me a few months ago, I thought, oh, he must have net operating losses. Well, I get the tax return from 2023 and find out, no, it's not net operating losses, it's capital losses. And most people probably don't know the difference. A net operating loss comes from when you own a business and you experience losses in that business and you don't have any other income to offset that. So that carries forward to future years, and then you can offset future income with that. A capital loss usually comes about by the sale of assets like stocks and bonds, is the most common one, or you know, possibly for some kinds of other investments, but generally stocks and bonds are where people get those big losses. And so this client who had a capital loss, and rather than a net operating loss, well, capital losses have a little bit of a provision.
A caveat.
A caveat.
They always
yes,
have a
there's
caveat somewhere.
Well, you can offset other capital gains with that capital loss, but you can only offset your ordinary income, which is your wages and other things like that, up to $3,000 per year. So if you do something and you've got a ton of income, you're only getting to write off $3,000 a year of that wages or a Roth conversion, which I'll get into later. you're only limited to 3,000 per year on your ordinary income.
So, the bottom line is, you gotta be careful, number one, of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and this person I had asked you, I said, how could that happen? How could that possibly happen if you have a CPA and all of that? How can that happen?
Yeah, I think the CPA just made a mistake, probably assumed without looking at the client's tax return again, because you get a lot of tax returns under your nose every year, and I can't remember all the details of everybody's tax returns, and I'm doing a couple hundred of them.
But knowing you,
Yeah.
what I know about you would never just say an
No,
answer. You would
no.
look it up,
I
you would
would
check it
look
out.
Yeah, and I was so disappointed for my client because
Oh.
it's a big fat tax bill.
That's really sad.
So,
Yeah, and that's where the excellence and integrity
Yeah.
comes in. And one thing about you too is that you guarantee all of your work. You wanna talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I stand by my work, which means if something goes wrong and it's our fault, I will pay the penalty. You know, if a client doesn't tell me something, well, that's on them, but if we make a mistake, I will agree to pay the penalty.
Now, it is tax season, and even if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my God, I wanna check into it, you also do second opinions all the time.
Yes.
The phone number to call her is 480-964-4030, that's 480-964-4030. She's rated with the Better Business Bureau. You do free consultations. You work nationwide, and her website is ArizonaCPAs.com. Before we go to a break, what do you want to talk about before we do that?
Well, I will just give a little bit of a teaser, but upcoming we'll talk a little bit more about different retirement plan issues that I'm aware of, and so the other thing is, hey, you know, business returns are due very soon, a week from Monday, so they're due, the deadline is normally March 15th, but this year the 15th falls on a Saturday, so we get a couple extra days till the following Monday.
So the main thing is, if number one, have somebody who's a CPA do your work for you, because let me tell you, when you do it by yourself, which is what this guy kind of did, it sounds to me a little bit with and not.
Yeah.
Sort of halfway it sounds, right? Don't do that. And as a matter of fact, tell everybody really quickly, when anyone has ever brought to you a return and showed it to you, if they've tried to do on their own, how much money have they, that you find for them?
Well, most of the time I find money for the clients. There's one case where the client did their own return. I found many errors, but I didn't find her money. She actually had not reported some income, so.
Don't do it yourself.
Don't do it.
Definitely. The
Yeah.
phone number to call is 480-964, that's 480-964-4030. And again, her website is ArizonaCPAs.com. Hang tight, we'll be back in just a minute. We're still live in the room.
Yep.
Okay. That was
You said
15.
the phone number for the first time, you said 964.
And I didn't say the whole thing.
964, no. You
I know, I thought that, that's why I went, I heard that.
Yeah.
That's the first
okay.
time,
Yeah.
okay. So,
Anyway.
back over here,
Yeah.
I'll say it again when we come back on. But for what you're dealing with, right, that's why people really should have second opinions
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a really good CPA that's responsive to phone calls and inquiries. The client was telling me that this CPA won't answer his phone calls, you know, and
That's
probably knows he's
not
screwed
the
up.
way to- yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. Number
Yeah.
one, the way I see it, if my CPA, and I've got that kind of money, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
when you're small, little nothing, sometimes even that feels badly, right?
Yeah,
But when obviously he's got a decent account there, right?
yeah.
I would never do that. I would never do that to anyone myself, but I can't see how people don't answer their phone calls in business.
Yeah, oh, I know. I think he's just avoiding the guy. You know, he actually asked him for some information about his tax return, and the guy wouldn't return the calls for that either. You know, he asked for
he's
the
hiding.
depreciation schedule, which is a normal thing you're required to give to a client. And
So let's say this happens, right, this issue, is it on the CPA? Is it
Well,
on the
he is a
client?
CPA, cause I Googled his name right before we went on the air, and he is a CPA. So he has to follow the ethics requirements, because many taxpayer preparers out there are not CPAs, or people that call themselves accountants are not necessarily CPAs.
Right, different.
You know, in the state of Arizona. In California, you can't call yourself an accountant unless you're a CPA, but in Arizona, the rules are a little bit different. And so it's important to check whether your accountant really is a CPA. Now, when they are a CPA, you do have some recourse, because they are required under the laws that govern CPAs to provide certain information. And you cannot withhold documents that are considered an integral part of the client's business, which is
Wow.
their depreciation schedule is one. I don't always give it out right away, but if a client asks for it, he certainly would.
Yeah,
I would never not give it to him.
wow, it's crazy, I'm
Okay.
sorry. And of course, you caught it.
That's funny.
So for the first time in 4 years, I actually didn't finish saying the phone number with Anna, which has never happened before. Her phone number to call, write it down. It's 480-964-4030. That's 480-964-4030. It's Arizona CPAs with an S.com. And I even said at the break, of course she heard the numbers, because you know that's what she's into, numbers. But we were talking, let's talk a little bit further about what you want to talk about with what's going on with also the conversions and all of that.
Yeah, so you can do a thing that's called a conversion to a Roth IRA, which means a conversion from a traditional IRA, which is a deductible IRA, to a Roth IRA. But the thing you need to know about it is those funds are going to be taxable. So it's a good idea, maybe if you have a lot, not to do it all at once. And the other thing is, you don't wanna do it in a year where you have high income. You wanna figure out when you don't have as much income, that's a good time to time your conversion, because the Roth IRA does not have any required minimum distributions like a traditional IRA. And also the Roth IRA, when you take the money out, it's non-taxable. So all your earnings on that Roth IRA are non-taxable, where a traditional IRA, you have to pay tax on that because it was put into the IRA with non-taxed money. In other words, you took a deduction on your tax return for it. Sometimes you may have rolled over a 401k, which is also money that's typically not taxed. So, you know, the government wants their
They
share.
want their money.
They want their
always
money.
want their
So-
money.
So that's
They're
something, you
brutal.
know, it's really important to talk to your CPA and or a financial planner. When you're gonna do a Roth conversion, you wanna make some plans to how to offset that.
Right, and this is where you come in. I mean, this is what you have a CPA
Yeah.
for, to make sure that they're
Yeah.
doing all of that for you and looking out for you in your best interest. Write this number down again, it's 480-964-4030. That's 480-964-4030. And the website again, it's Arizona CPAs with an S. She does, I wanna say this, you do both business and personal taxes. I wanna talk about that real quickly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you do work nationwide, you're rated with the Better Business Bureau, and she does do free consultations. Retirement planning.
Yeah, well, there's, you know, IRAs are one, Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs are one way you can do retirement planning. And depending on what your, you know, you need to kind of decide on your current tax situation and your future tax situation, which model is better for you if you're gonna do the IRA route. There's also, for business owners, you can set up a simple plan or a SEP plan, and there's different rules for them. Simple plans must be in place prior to October 1st every year, so it's not something you can do last minute. And SEP plans, you can kind of do those last minute. You can fund them before you file your tax return. But there's some caveats with that too. Well, one thing, it depends on what kind of business you have. Now, my client that I have, I looked it up for him. He has an S corporation, which means he's treated as an employee and he has a salary. And so his contributions to either retirement plan would be based on how much wages he paid. So, and then he may or may not have to, depending on which plan, he may have to, well, actually both plans require you to cover some of your employees if you have full-time employees that have been with you, usually, generally it's over a year. So there's things to consider. It may cost you more, but it may be a good benefit for your business and your employees if that's the way you wanna go. So, so in his case, well, it's not a big deduction, so,
But still-
I'm gonna probably refer him to one of our next guests on the show because he needs some good financial planning right now because
It's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt.
And,
Yes.
well, but this is what's really important, when people hear someone like you listening, talking here and you're listening to her. First of all, what I know about Anna, number one, you cannot tell a lie
Yeah.
ever. You are all about excellence and integrity in accounting and in everything that you do, because that's the way she is. It's just your nature, right? And you like to help people in any way that you can.
Yeah, I kind of adopt my clients, so when they have situations that are bad, I really feel for them and I try to do whatever I can to mitigate that problem. Sometimes there's not much I can do, but I try.
Right. Unfortunately, he didn't hear you prior to this, whatever that was happening.
Well, yeah, well, I probably didn't talk about the details of it.
Right.
And, and so that's why I wanted to go into the difference between the capital loss and the net operating loss, is that the, Roth conversion is considered ordinary income, so therefore cannot be offset by a capital loss, so.
But, I think that this is important too. People, we go and we hire a CPA or whatever, we always think they all are the same. Or we think that, they know, my CPA would know, he'll know what to do, she'll know what to do, whatever. It's not always the case.
No, it's not always the case. We are, as CPAs, required to take 40 hours of continuing education per year. I actually go over and above that. I take about 60 hours a year, and I'm always doing research because, I try to not answer things off the cuff because you can get in trouble that way. So I always try to research the answer to the question before when the question's asked, I say, hey, well, let me, look into it. I may say, well, I think it might be this way, but let me confirm that. I always try to research stuff, and I take as many classes as I can just squeeze into my schedule because it's important to increase my knowledge.
And that's where that
Yeah.
excellence and integrity
Yeah.
comes in. You can write the number down at 480-964-4030. That's 480-964-4030. Arizona CPAs with an S.com. Just because it happens to be that tax season is like right around the corner. We're here.
Oh,
We're
it's
in
here.
it. We're in it. We're in the thick of it. And for anybody that's listening, let's get ready, let's get your taxes in, so that they can be taken care of. There are people that get extensions. What do you wanna say about tax season right now?
Yeah, well, it's very, very busy. Clients say, hey, what's the ETA on my tax return? And I said, well, right now, we're probably about 3 weeks out based on, past years. Just because we work the returns in the order they come in, unless there's an extenuating circumstance. I had one guy who, has a sick family member and had to go out of state, and so we turned his tax return around pretty quick. We have somebody who needs to file a prior year tax return, and, you can file amended returns and tax returns up to, 3 years after the original due date and get refunds. after the original due date, so sad, too bad, you don't get your refunds back if you go past that 3-year deadline.
Wow.
So,
We better get that taken
yeah,
care of.
yeah, so it's gotta get taken care of, so I brought in this client who had that issue, and of course, we are gonna make sure we get done well before April 15th. So, but yes, there are extensions available. Now, the extensions are extension of time to file. That doesn't mean it's an extension of the time to pay. So if you think you owe, you might wanna pay in advance, or just at least get an estimate. You can always get the money refunded back or apply to your next year's taxes, depending on the situation. You need to make sure that you get something into the IRS if you're going to owe, cause otherwise you're gonna get a late payment penalty.
Well,
And you might get
taxes.
an underpayment penalty too, and.
They have an
we wanna-
underpayment, oh, that's right,
Yeah,
of
we
course,
wanna avoid
underpayment.
those penalties as much as possible,
Right.
so.
So the best thing to do is to call her, have a consultation. She does free consultations. She works nationwide. You're rated with the Better Business Bureau. She's all about excellence and integrity in accounting. And you help people not only with just taxes. She helps you in business. You really do. You help people that understand their numbers. And I think that's what makes you also very different.
Oh, yes, I really like to go over the person's, not just their profit and loss, but I like to show them their balance sheet and maybe talk to them about their inventory, their debt, things that affect their profit and loss, and things that affect their cash flow.
And one of the things I also know about you, how many people out there, your CPA will go actually into your business and come in and kind of take a tour so that they understand it? No,
Yeah,
Well,
I've
Anna
done
does.
that many times. Especially clients that have, businesses that might not be entirely in my wheelhouse, I wanna know more about it. So I've taken tours of many of my clients' offices, especially their manufacturing facilities, so I can look at, what they've got in inventory, and I can talk to them about their machines and whether they need to replace any of them. It's a lot of information for me, which helps me do my job better.
she also likes complicated, I'll get it out, complicated returns.
Yes, I'm certified in 3 different states, and so I've done many, many multi-state returns. And that's one kind of complicated return I really like to do, and I'm well-versed in, real estate, rental real estate, and also, I'm very good at people that have, like, let's say, incentive stock options from a big corporation. There's special considerations with those, so, and if you have those, you might be paying too much in tax.
So call her. Her phone number is 480-964-4030. That's 480-964-4030. She does do free consultations. She works nationwide. She's rated with the Better Business Bureau. She's all about excellence and integrity in accounting. It's Arizona CPAs with an S.com.